You don't need another message about belief. You have enough belief. What you lack is movement. Chosen one, hear this as a disruption, not an encouragement. Belief alone was never meant to be the destination. It was meant to be the ignition. You were taught that faith lives quietly inside the mind, that if you just think the right thoughts, feel the right reverence, one day God's presence will descend and meet you where you sit. But presence does not visit passivity. Presence responds to alignment. That's why you believe for years and still feel distant. That's why you pray but nothing shifts. That's why your spirit feels called yet unstirred. It isn't because you're unworthy, it's because you're standing still. This is not for the faint of heart, because what I'm telling you removes every hiding place. You don't experience God by agreeing with truth. You experience God by moving in it. The divine current is already flowing. It is not waiting for you to feel ready, it is waiting for you to step in. Chosen one is not a title you admire. It is a role you activate, and activation demands decision. There is a version of God you can only meet in motion, not in theory, not in contemplation, but in obedience that costs you comfort. You have mistaken stillness for faith, you have mistaken patience for delay, and you have mistaken safety for wisdom. But presence follows action, favor follows alignment, and revelation follows courage. This message is not arriving by accident, it is a summons, a line in the sand, a moment where belief is no longer enough, because believing without acting is not faith. It is avoidance dressed in reverence. And you were not chosen to watch, you were chosen to move. You were told in the last breath that belief without movement is avoidance dressed as reverence. So now we go where that avoidance hides. You've been waiting for a signal, a feeling, a surge of confidence, some internal permission that says now it's safe to move. But chosen one waiting has never been neutral. Waiting has been a decision. You called it patience. You spiritualized it as wisdom. But underneath it was fear of misalignment, fear of wasting effort, fear of stepping forward and discovering the cost is real. Here is the fracture you must see. Divine connection does not begin with clarity. Clarity follows motion. You were trained to believe that inspiration precedes action, that once you feel certain enough, brave enough, healed enough, the path will open. But that is not how presence operates. That is how control operates. Waiting keeps you in charge. Waiting lets you believe without risking exposure. Waiting lets you hold God as an idea instead of encountering Him as weight. That's why the silence felt heavy. Not because heaven withdrew, but because heaven was waiting on your body to agree with your words. You sensed the pull, the restlessness, the low ache behind your ribs. That wasn't confusion. That was the current brushing against you. And every time you said, "not yet," you stepped back onto dry ground. Chosen one inspiration is not a prerequisite. It is a byproduct. The scroll does not unseal itself in the mind. It opens when the feet move, when you act without guarantees, when you cross without applause. This is why waiting has felt holy but produced nothing. It kept you safe from failure and equally safe from presence. God does not meet you in postponement. He meets you in obedience that trembles. The delay was never divine timing. It was a test of alignment, and alignment only reveals itself when you move before you feel ready. You just heard it named. The delay was never divine timing. It was alignment being postponed. And now we step into what that postponement has been doing to you. Because belief that never becomes movement does not stay neutral. It turns inward. It presses on the nervous system. It fractures the inner world. You believed the right things. You held the language. You carried the concepts. But your body never crossed the threshold your spirit recognized. And that split has been costly. That's why you feel exhausted without having done anything wrong. Why your faith feels heavy instead of alive. Why worship sometimes feels like longing instead of presence. Why prayer feels like reaching instead of resting. This is what happens when truth is stored but not enacted. The soul was not designed to warehouse revelation. It was designed to move with it. You have been living with compressed obedience, knowing what to do, sensing what to do, but never letting it leave the internal realm. And what stays internal too long becomes pressure. Your system learned to survive on restraint. Trauma taught you to observe instead of risk, to think instead of step, to analyze instead of obey. So belief became safe, clean, contained. But safety is not where presence dwells. Presence has weight. It disrupts posture. It rearranges priorities. It demands the body participate in what the mouth confesses. That's why you felt disconnected even while believing. Not because belief was false, but because it was incomplete. You were never meant to just agree with God. You were meant to align with Him. And alignment is physical, it is behavioral, it is costly. Chosen one, this is why your inner world feels crowded. Because revelation kept arriving and embodiment kept being delayed. The scroll kept pressing against the seal. Your frustration was not a lack of faith. It was faith waiting to be released through action. Every time you ignored the nudge, every time you postponed the step, every time you said, "I'll wait until I'm sure," the tension increased. Not as punishment, as consequence. Because unused authority does not disappear. It stagnates. And stagnation feels like confusion, apathy, self-doubt, and fatigue. It feels like disconnection. It feels like distance. But the distance was never between you and God. It was between knowing and doing. You were taught that faith is internal assent. But Scripture was never written to be admired. It was written to be enacted. That's why fire falls after the altar's built. That's why water parts after the foot steps forward. That's why the door opens inward. The presence you want cannot be felt through agreement alone. It is experienced when your actions catch up to your conviction. This is the pattern you've been living inside. Belief without embodiment, calling without cost, identity without responsibility, and it has made your soul restless. Not because you are broken, but because you are designed for movement. The frustration is not failure. It is pressure meant to propel. And now you understand the cost of staying still. Because belief that never moves eventually demands a decision. Either you release it into action or it will keep pressing on you until something breaks. And what comes next is not comfort, it is activation. You ended the last movement facing a truth that cannot be unheard. Pressure exists to propel, not to punish. So now the question changes. Not why do I feel this, but what does it demand of me? This is where the word chosen stops being poetic. Because chosen does not mean selected for comfort, it means singled out for alignment. You were never meant to believe about God from a distance. You were meant to move with Him inside the current of decision, side by side, step by step, risk by risk. That is the mandate. Chosen one is not a compliment whispered to the ego. It is a summons issued to the will, a call to immediate engagement. The moment you sense the pull, the moment the restlessness began, the moment truth started knocking on behavior, your role changed. You were no longer a listener. You became a participant. This is where many turn back, because participation costs authority over outcomes. It requires surrendering the illusion of control while still taking responsibility for movement. Believing about God keeps Him safely external. You can admire, you can agree, you can quote, but believing with God requires alignment. Your choices start echoing heaven. Your steps start carrying weight. Your life becomes a point of contact. This is why the mandate feels heavy, not because it is cruel, but because it is real. You were not chosen to observe divine order. You were chosen to enact it. And that means timing is no longer theoretical, it is embodied. When the nudge comes, a delay is no longer neutral. When clarity presses, hesitation becomes resistance. When alignment is revealed, inaction becomes misalignment. This is the shift that separates belief from obedience. Ordinary people never cross this line. They stay inspired, they stay informed, they stay safely impressed. But you felt the demand because you were marked for motion. Chosen one, your status was never about being special. It was about being available. Available to move first, available to step without consensus, available to act while others are still debating meaning. The mandate does not wait for perfection. It waits for agreement between conviction and behavior. And once that agreement is made, presence is no longer distant. It becomes immediate, responsive, heavy. This is the moment where faith stops being internal and becomes visible, where belief leaves the mind and enters the body. And from this point forward, nothing remains theoretical. Because once you move with God, you cannot return to believing about Him. You cross the line in the last movement. Belief became participation. And now the question sharpens, what does that look like when it touches real life? Because alignment is not abstract, it leaves evidence. You were taught that extraordinary impact belongs to extraordinary people, the polished, the fearless, the visibly qualified, but that was never the pattern. The pattern has always been ordinary lives making unordinary decisions. Not louder prayers, not longer preparation, but a single act of obedience that broke routine. The teacher who spoke when silence was safer, the worker who walked away when compromise promised security, the parent who changed patterns instead of repeating them, the voice that told the truth without knowing how it would land. No platform, no applause, just movement, and the consequence followed. Doors opened that strategy could not force. Resources appeared without negotiation, timing compressed, resistance rerouted. Not because they were exceptional, but because they aligned. This is what religion rarely tells you. God's presence is not impressed by intensity. It responds to agreement. When behavior aligns with conviction, reality rearranges. That's why some people seem carried. Not luck, not favoritism, alignment. They didn't wait to feel powerful. They acted while trembling. And trembling did not disqualify them. It confirmed the cost. Chosen one, these are not stories to admire. They are mirrors because the same current is brushing against your life. In small decisions that feel inconvenient. In moments that ask for courage without spectacle. In actions that don't look spiritual but feel weighted. You felt it. The urge to speak, to stop, to start, to walk away, to step forward. And you minimized it because it looked ordinary. But ordinariness is the delivery system. Radical impact does not begin with dramatic acts. It begins with decisive ones. One conversation, one boundary, one step taken without certainty. That is how the mandate expresses itself. Not in grand gestures, but in faithful alignment repeated. And every time someone moves like this, something shifts that cannot be traced back to effort alone. Provision arrives early, opposition dissolves quietly, momentum builds without explanation. This is not mythology, it is pattern. Presence makes itself known where alignment is practiced, and now you must see it clearly. The difference between those who encounter God tangibly and those who only believe is not devotion. It is decision. They chose movement when stillness was safer. They chose obedience when outcomes were unclear. They chose alignment when comfort argued otherwise. And the result was not perfection, it was participation. This is the proof you've been waiting for. Not as theory, as consequence. Because once you see this pattern, you can no longer pretend your hesitation is harmless. You are standing at the same threshold, and the next movement will tell you what radical action actually is. You just saw the evidence. Ordinary movement, extraordinary consequence. So now we dismantle the final distortion, what radical actually means. Because radical action is not chaos. It is not intensity. It is not spiritual theatrics or reckless effort. Radical action is alignment expressed without delay. You were trained to associate power with strain, to believe that if it doesn't exhaust you, it doesn't count, that obedience must feel dramatic to be real. But force is not faith, and effort is not agreement. The divine current does not respond to how hard you push. It responds to how accurately you move. This is where many miss it. They rush to do more instead of doing what aligns. They pray louder, volunteer, harder, speak faster, act bigger, while ignoring the one instruction that would actually shift their trajectory. Radical action is often small, specific, inconvenient. It's the call you've been avoiding, the boundary you've been delaying, the habit you know must end, the step you keep postponing because it doesn't look impressive. Alignment is surgical. It removes friction instead of adding effort. That's why it feels clean when it's right. There is resistance, yes, but not confusion. Your body knows when an action aligns. Your nervous system tightens not from fear, but from recognition. That recognition is not emotion. It is memory. You've mistaken alignment for effort because effort feels virtuous. Alignment feels exposed. Because once you act in alignment, you can't hide behind busyness. You can't substitute activity for obedience. This is why radical action is rare. Not because it's difficult, but because it is precise. It removes excuses. It narrows the path. It demands integrity between what you know and what you do. Chosen one, you don't need to do everything. You need to do the one thing. The action that collapses distance, the action that restores order, the action that places your body where your belief already lives. This is how alignment unlocks momentum. Not by force, but by fit. And when fit is achieved, presence becomes tangible. The noise quiets, the pressure releases, the path stabilizes. Not because life gets easier, but because resistance loses its leverage. Radical action does not exhaust you. Misalignment does. And now you can feel the difference. The next movement will show you why this works not just spiritually, but neurologically. Because this current is not mystical chaos. It is ordered, and it is waiting for agreement. You ended knowing this current is ordered, not mystical chaos. So now you're ready to understand why alignment works without turning it into theory. Because the moment you align, something locks in. Your attention stops scattering. Your body stops arguing with your mind. Your will stops leaking energy in 100 directions. And that coherence is power. Your nervous system was never designed to hold contradiction. When belief says one thing and behavior says another, your system stays in survival. Hyper-vigilant, fragmented, always bracing. That's why misalignment feels like anxiety, fatigue fog. Not because you're weak, but because your system is carrying two commands at once. Alignment collapses that split. The moment you act on conviction, your brain stops scanning for threat. Your attention sharpens. Your perception widens. This is not imagination. This is design. Focused intent paired with decisive action tells your entire system we are no longer negotiating. And when inner negotiation ends, authority emerges. Spiritually, this is agreement. Neurologically, this is coherence. Practically, this is momentum. That's why outcomes accelerate after aligned action. Not because reality suddenly favors you, but because you stop sabotaging your own signal. Chosen one, you were never meant to live divided. Divine presence does not flood fractured vessels. It fills ordered ones. Alignment is the act of sealing the vessel. When your words, choices, posture, and direction agree, you become readable to the current. Your life stops sending mixed instructions. That's why doors open without force, why provision appears without panic, why timing compresses. You are no longer resisting the flow you're asking for. This is why prayer alone felt thin. Prayer without movement kept your system undecided. It asked while withholding agreement, but action completes the circuit. And once the circuit is complete, power moves. This is not manifestation by desire. It is reality responding to order. Chosen one, this is why the step feels irreversible. Because once alignment is embodied, your system cannot unknow coherence. You feel grounded, clear, weighted, not euphoric, authoritative, and now you understand the danger of delay. Delay keeps the system split. Hesitation keeps authority dormant. This is why the cost is real. Because once you know this, inaction becomes a choice against order. The next movement will show you the evidence. Not theory, not sensation, but favor you can point to. You ended the last movement knowing this is not theory. Alignment seals the vessel. And now we name what follows that sealing. Because when coherence is achieved, presence stops being abstract. It leaves fingerprints. This is where belief finally runs out of hiding places. Because favor is not a feeling, it is an outcome. Not spectacle, not fantasy, but reality rearranging itself in ways effort cannot explain. Chosen one, you were taught to measure God's presence by emotion, warmth, peace, elevation. But emotion is the smallest indicator. Presence is weight. It alters timelines. It changes access. It compresses distance between need and provision. When alignment is embodied, support shows up early. Not late, not barely. Early. The right person appears before the crisis peaks. The resource arrives before the window closes. The door opens before you finish knocking. And you know the difference. Because it does not feel lucky, it feels ordered. This is what favor actually is, not indulgence, not exemption from difficulty. Favor is friction being removed from the path you are already walking in alignment. That's why misaligned effort feels heavy even when successful, and aligned action feels carried even when costly. Case after case follows the same pattern. The person who finally acted on the instruction they had delayed for years did not avoid resistance. But resistance lost its leverage. What should have taken years took months. What required negotiation resolved through timing. What demanded force yielded through positioning. Provision did not fall from the sky. It emerged from angles they could not have planned. This is co-creation. Not you doing everything, not God doing everything, but alignment allowing both to move without interference. Chosen one, this is why some lives accelerate without burnout. They are not sprinting, they are carried by current. They still labor, they still decide, they still sacrifice. But effort multiplies instead of dissipates. Because once alignment is embodied, you stop fighting gravity. You move with it. This is the presence you have been seeking. Not an atmosphere you visit, a reality that responds. Open doors are not rewards, they are confirmations. Accelerated outcomes are not favoritism, they are evidence of coherence. And when this begins to happen, responsibility increases. Because favor is not for comfort, it is for stewardship. The moment support shows up consistently, the question shifts. Not does God see me, but what is being asked of me now? This is where many retreat, because favor removes the excuse of invisibility. Once alignment produces evidence, you can no longer claim confusion. The presence you wanted now watches how you carry it. Do you grow precise or careless? Do you stay aligned or drift back to convenience? Do you steward momentum or waste it? This is the hidden cost of favor. It exposes motive. Because divine presence does not just empower, it reveals. It reveals whether you wanted God or wanted relief, whether you wanted alignment or wanted outcomes without responsibility. Chosen one, this is why the path narrows here. Because favor amplifies everything. It amplifies integrity and it amplifies compromise. That's why some experience breakthrough and then stall. They enjoyed the evidence but resisted the weight. But you were not brought this far to stop at experience. You were brought here to embody authority. Authority is not volume, it is consistency under pressure. And pressure will come. Because favor does not remove opposition, it exposes it. When alignment attracts support, it also attracts scrutiny. The environment responds to order by testing it. And this is not punishment, it is confirmation. Only aligned structures are tested for load. And now you are being prepared to carry more than belief, more than experience, more than proof. You are being prepared to carry consequence. Because once presence becomes tangible, neutrality is no longer an option. You are seen, you are resourced, you are moving. And the next movement will ask you what you will do with that authority. You ended the last movement with a truth that changes posture. Once presence becomes tangible, neutrality dies. So now we speak of what that visibility demands. Because favor is not a reward, it is an entrustment. And entrustment always carries weight. Chosen one, the moment alignment begins producing evidence, your life is no longer private in the way it once was. Not to people, to systems. Order draws attention, integrity draws pressure, authority draws testing. This is where many misunderstand what co-creation means. They imagine partnership as empowerment without exposure, support without scrutiny, resources without responsibility. But co-creation is not collaboration in comfort. It is agreement under load. You are not empowered so life becomes easier. You are empowered so order can move through you. And order always confronts disorder. That is why once favor shows up consistently, resistance sharpens. Not because you did something wrong, but because alignment announces itself. Light does not argue with darkness. It reveals it. This is the moment where your identity consolidates, not as a believer, but as a carrier. Carrier of pace, carrier of tone, carrier of consequence. You now influence environments whether you intend to or not. Your presence stabilizes or destabilizes rooms. Your decisions ripple outward. This is the hidden reality of authority. It makes you responsible for effects you did not consciously aim for. That's why integrity becomes non-negotiable here. Small compromises cost more now because alignment amplified your signal. Misalignment amplifies distortion. What you once got away with quietly now creates noise. This is not punishment, it is precision increasing. Co-creation means heaven does not override your will. It works through it, which means every decision matters more, not less. You can no longer say I didn't know, because clarity was already given, embodied, confirmed, and this is where fear tries to return wearing a new mask. Fear of visibility, fear of failure under watch, fear of making the wrong move now that it counts. But chosen one authority is not about never misstepping. It is about staying aligned when correction comes, because correction will come, not as condemnation, as recalibration. Only structures meant to carry weight are adjusted. This is why the path feels narrower now, because options that once felt available no longer fit. Your appetite changes, your tolerance shifts, your excuses lose credibility, not because you are becoming rigid, but because coherence demands consistency. Co-creation requires you to steward momentum, to guard alignment, to treat presence as wholly not casual. You cannot rush ahead of the current, and you cannot lag behind it. You must stay inside it. This is why ego cannot survive here. Ego wants credit. Authority requires anonymity of motive. The moment your identity becomes about outcome instead of obedience, the current resists you. Not harshly, firmly, because you were never meant to replace God. You were meant to represent order. This is the humility of authority. You carry weight, but you do not own it. And because of that, your life becomes instructional. Even when you don't speak, people watch how you decide, how you pause, how you refuse shortcuts. Not because you asked to be watched, but because alignment is visible. This is the cost no one advertises. Favor brings exposure. Acceleration brings accountability. Presence brings responsibility. And now you understand why some retreat after breakthrough. They wanted evidence, not stewardship. They wanted relief, not representation. But you stayed. You're still here, still listening, which means the mandate is deepening. The next decision will not be about whether you believe. It will be about whether you accept the cost of consistency, because co-creation is not a moment. It is a posture maintained, and it requires something rare. Faithfulness without applause, integrity without guarantee, obedience without explanation. This is the weight of authority you are learning to carry, and the final movement will not ask you to understand more. It will ask you to choose. One step, one action, one irreversible alignment. Because after this, there is no returning to theory. You ended the last movement standing under weight, authority named, visibility accepted, cost understood. So now there is nothing left to explain. Only one thing remains: choice. Because all revelation, no matter how precise, eventually demands embodiment. And embodiment always narrows to a single step, not 10, not a lifetime plan. 1. Chosen one, this is where many stall. Not because they don't know what to do, but because they know exactly what to do. And knowing removes excuses. You already feel it. That action you've tried to reinterpret. That instruction you've dressed up as timing. That decision you keep revisiting in your mind, hoping it will soften. It won't. Because this step is not informational. It is sealing. This is where alignment stops being something you understand and becomes something you are. And it will cost you something specific. It may cost you comfort, a relationship, a pattern that once protected you, an identity that kept you acceptable. It will not cost you your calling. It will confirm it. The radical step is rarely dramatic, but it is always decisive. It closes one door permanently so another can open without resistance. That is why fear intensifies here, because fear senses finality. Fear does not oppose belief. It opposes commitment, because once you act, you cannot pretend you didn't hear. Chosen one, this is not about doing more for God. It is about agreeing with Him in a way that costs you ambiguity. Ambiguity has been your hiding place. As long as you stayed undecided, you could imagine many futures without being responsible for any of them. But alignment collapses fantasy. It produces reality. This is why the step feels heavy, because it removes alternatives. You don't need to be certain of outcomes. You need to be certain of obedience. Outcomes are not your jurisdiction. Alignment is. And alignment is proven by action, not intention. This is the final inversion. You were taught to wait until peace comes, then move. But peace follows movement when movement is aligned. The ground firms after the foot steps forward. The door opens after the hand reaches. The current carries after you enter it. This is not recklessness, it is order. And order does not negotiate endlessly. Chosen one, the step you are being asked to take will not announce itself with fireworks. It will feel simple, clear, quiet. That's how you know it's real. Your nervous system may resist, but your spirit will recognize it. There will be no confusion, only cost. And cost is the final confirmation, because nothing misaligned asks you to sacrifice integrity. Nothing false demands coherence. Nothing empty requires courage. This step is not about proving anything. Not to God, not to others, not to yourself. It is about agreement. Agreement between what you say you believe and how you live when it matters. Once that agreement is made, presence does not need to convince you anymore. It becomes consistent, and consistency changes everything. Your prayers shift, not because you ask differently, but because you stand differently. Your decisions sharpen. Your tolerance for distraction decreases. Your sense of timing becomes embodied. You stop asking, "Is this God?" and start asking, "Am I aligned?" That is the posture of authority, not certainty of outcome, certainty of obedience. This is why the step cannot be postponed. Not because God is impatient, but because alignment cannot coexist with delay forever. Eventually, delay becomes a decision against movement, and that decision has consequences too. Chosen one, you were not brought through all of this to stop at understanding. Understanding is cheap. You were brought here to cross, to do the one thing that collapses distance and seals agreement. No audience, no announcement, no validation required, just action. And once you take it, you will not need to ask if God is present, because presence will respond. Not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. Support will shift. Resistance will recalibrate. Your inner world will settle into coherence, not ease, authority. And authority feels different. It is quiet, grounded, heavy in the right way. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not beg for signs. It moves. This is the invitation, not to believe more deeply, but to act more honestly. One step, taken now, without negotiation. Because after this, there is no returning to theory. Only a life that either carries alignment or resists it. And you already know which one you were chosen for. You've arrived at the quiet after the crossing, not silence, stillness. This is where the noise settles, and what remains is weight, not pressing, not urgent, just present. Chosen one, nothing more is being asked of you in this moment. Not explanation, not performance, not proof, only honesty. Because when the decision is made, even before it is executed, something inside you shifts posture. You're no longer reaching, you're no longer bracing, you're no longer scanning the horizon for permission, you're standing. And standing feels unfamiliar when you've lived in anticipation for so long. For years, your spirit leaned forward, waiting for confirmation, waiting for clarity, waiting for the day when belief would finally turn into something solid. Now solidity has arrived, not as certainty of outcome, but as certainty of direction. That is enough. This is what presence often feels like at first. Not overwhelming emotion, not dramatic assurance, but groundedness. A sense that you are where you are supposed to be, even if you don't yet know what will happen next. Chosen one, remember this alignment does not remove mystery. It gives you permission to move inside it. You are not required to resolve the entire future. You are only required to remain coherent. Coherent in speech, coherent in action, coherent in posture. When those align, life stops feeling like a series of interruptions and starts feeling like a conversation you are finally participating in. You may notice subtle changes now. Your tolerance for distraction will drop. What once entertained you may feel hollow. What once felt urgent may lose its grip. This is not loss, it is refinement. The current does not carry everything, only what belongs. You may also notice resistance attempting to return, not loudly but cleverly. It will suggest delay one last time. It will offer comfort disguised as wisdom. It will try to convince you that nothing truly changed, but something already has. You are no longer negotiating with what you know. That alone alters trajectory. Chosen one, do not rush to narrate this moment. Do not explain it away. Do not seek validation for it. Let it settle into your body. Let your nervous system learn this new posture. Let your breathing slow. Let your decisions simplify. Authority matures quietly. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself over time through consistency. You will be tempted to measure progress by external signs. Resist that urge. Measure instead by integrity. Are you acting in agreement with what you now carry? Are you maintaining alignment when no one is watching? Are you choosing coherence over convenience? These are the markers that matter. Favor will come and go in waves. Support will arrive through unexpected channels. Opposition will test what you've chosen. None of these determine whether you are aligned. Alignment is not proven by ease. It is proven by steadiness. Chosen one, you do not need to fear missteps. Correction is part of movement. What matters is not perfection, but responsiveness. When adjustment is needed, you will feel it, not as shame, as recalibration. Stay teachable, stay grounded, stay moving. You are no longer chasing presence. You are learning to carry it. That changes how you listen, how you speak, how you wait. Waiting now is different. It is no longer postponement. It is attentiveness. You are not waiting instead of acting. You are waiting within alignment. There is a difference. And that difference will keep you from drifting back into old patterns. Chosen one, the world does not need louder belief. It needs embodied conviction. Lives that move when truth calls. People who act without spectacle. Carriers who stay aligned when no one applauds. That is how order spreads. Not through dominance, through coherence. You are now part of that quiet work. Nothing flashy, nothing performative, just faithful movement, step by step inside a current that no longer feels distant. Let that be enough for today. When the moment comes to act, you will know. Until then, remain present, remain aligned, remain honest. The rest will unfold in its time.